3 women are gunned down in the middle of the street, unprovoked, and nobody is talking about it. Hello, my name is Nissy Tee and welcome to Watchman News, breaking the breaking news. Over the past few days, there have been outrage and protests happening across the globe against sexual assault and violence against women in particular. In the United Kingdom, people took to social media and to the streets to remember marketing executive Sarah Everard, who was found murdered in a bag in Kent last week, miles away from her home in Brixton. It was later found that she had been kidnapped and murdered by 48-year-old Wayne Cousins, who happened to be a police officer. Her death caused shockwaves across the nation, and women in particular took to social media to share their distress, with many sharing their own stories of moments they too felt threatened, unsafe, or had even been harassed walking down the streets of London. Now, as with anything that happens these days, there will always be someone who says something that most people don't agree with that tends to cause backlash. British TV presenter Davina McCall posted a tweet that read, "Female abduction/murder is extremely rare. Yes, we should all be vigilant when out alone, but this level of fear-mongering isn't healthy, and men's mental health is an issue as well. Calling all men out as dangerous is bad for our sons, brothers and partners." A tweet that has since been retweeted over 16,000 times and liked over 109,000 times. A tweet that some may say was slightly out of touch and maybe perhaps something that should have been mentioned a little bit later on down the line, as the news of Sarah Everard was still and is still a very fresh wound. But a tweet that was said nonetheless, and an opinion that Davina McCall is allowed to have. But let's take a moment to focus on something super important that she said. This level of fear-mongering isn't healthy. And in all honesty, I don't see the lie. And for all the men are trash or men are abusive crew, and for that person that also tweeted asking if men even deserve to have rights at all, now today I don't have time for you all in that tribe, but when I do have the time, we'll definitely look into that statement too one day. But for now, I want to focus on this key word, fear. A virus that seems to be eating up this generation more and more. A small but important example is that of a tweet that was brought to my attention just a few moments after reading Davina's tweet that says something along the lines of, "I wanted to go out today, but after seeing the Sarah Everard story, my anxiety has flared up and I'll be staying in." A tweet that in all honesty broke my heart for 2 reasons. One, because there was, as someone who has lived in London my whole life until recently, a part of me that completely understood where she was coming from. But then there was also a part of me as a woman who knew that living in fear is not the solution, nor should we want it to be. And now, while this is happening in the West, we so often forget about those that we believe to live way over there. A story that you probably don't know about, or a story that you probably wouldn't have cared about if I didn't bring it to your attention today. And that is a story of 3 Afghan women who were killed after leaving a television station that they worked at in eastern Afghanistan. 3 women who also deserve our time, energy, and thoughts. These 3 women were female media workers who were recent high school graduates and ranged from the age of 18 to the age of 20. The 3 women were gunned down in 2 separate attacks in the city of Jalalabad after leaving their television station and were headed home. According to reports, 2 other people who were passers-by were also wounded in the shootings. Now, while no specific group has claimed responsibility for the attacks, Taliban spokesman Zabiullah Mujahid denied the group having any involvement with the killings. The chief police, Juma Garhamet, has said that an armed suspect was later taken into custody after he was allegedly trying to escape. It is said that the suspect has admitted that he indeed is a Taliban member and was the one that carried out the attacks. Now, according to Human Rights Watch, in Afghanistan, women and children comprise of over 44% of all civilian casualties. In February, the Ministry of Women's Affairs reported an increase in registered cases of violence against women. Now, those are only registered cases, including murder, assault, and rape. Such cases are seldom prosecuted due to pressure from family members, and there are very few services available to people seeking to escape violence. I want to briefly share with you details of a chilling case, that of Lal Bibi, a 17-year-old girl in Faryab, Afghanistan, who had been beaten and burned by her husband and her husband's father. Torture that lasted 6 months before she was taken to a hospital by her immediate family. And yes, you heard me correctly. At the age of 17, she has a husband. According to studies in the Democratic Republic of Congo, 48 women are raped every hour. That is every single hour. 48 women are raped. And rape continues to be a weapon of war across countries devastated by the effects of war and violence. Countries that we only think about when it is relevant to us. Now, I say all of this to say this. Let's take a moment to check our own privilege, as is so emphasized across social media today. Especially as women in the West, we have a privilege that a lot of women do not have. And I want us to look at things from a different perspective for just a moment. Now, do women in the West still suffer egregious and heinous crimes that deserve to be spoken up about? 100% yes. However, we live in the West, where most of us, even those of us that live or lived, just like myself, in the poorest and often dodgy parts of London, we tend to have cars, have gone to school, have hot running water. We may not have always had a lot of food, but there was food nonetheless. Even if the only option was the local chicken and chip shop, that was an option nonetheless. Many of us have never been forced into childhood marriage, were outspoken, have started our own businesses, and even carved out our own lanes. And now we're ready to undo all of that because of something by the name of fear. I'm sorry, but absolutely not. Today may be the day that you choose to dislike me, but I refuse to let that be the case. We talk so strongly about female empowerment, and yet in the same breath, we want to give all of our power back. Now, a statistic that I do have to highlight that was, of course, worrying and heartbreaking once again was one that stated that 97% of women have experienced sexual assault or violence in the UK. A statistic that did indeed make me angry, upset, and frustrated that this is even the case in 2021. To think that nearly all women have been harassed, catcalled, or touched or had anything done to them that was inappropriate in this way, including myself, by the way, is an absolute disgrace. And yes, men do have the duty to do better. But while men are getting themselves together, I refuse to be part of the live in fear tribe. We all, especially women in the West, have a duty to all the women that fought before us and to all the little girls across the globe who don't have nearly as many choices as we do. We have a duty to live boldly and without apology, not to cower and to hide, but to create change right where we are, not from a place of fear, but from a place of understanding and complete authority. Now, talking of backlash, it seems that the LGBTQ community are not happy with the Vatican as Pope Francis gave the green light on a statement that emphasizes that the Catholic Church would not be blessing same-sex unions. In the statement, it was said, the blessing of homosexual unions cannot be considered licit. And it went on to say, God does not and cannot bless sin. A statement that was, of course, a blow to the LGBTQ community and was said to be a setback for Catholics who had hoped that the institution would, quote unquote, modernize its approach to homosexuality. Now, despite this clarification, the Pope did add, what we have to create is a civil union law. That way, they are legally covered. This, however, was still not remotely accepted by a number of people from the LGBTQ community, with some sharing their views once again on social media, including on platforms like Twitter, with one individual even stating that he was saddened by the statement, but wasn't in fact shocked at all. Now, this is where the questions have to be asked, because like I say, I'm never here to make anyone think in any particular type of way. My job is to simply ask the questions that many people refuse to ask. Where do we draw the line between being open, not judgmental or discriminatory in any way, not being bigoted or even prejudiced, and then condoning something you, I, we may not necessarily believe in? Because whether people like it or not, the Bible does state that it is a sin. So if that's what people believe in according to their faith, and in the world of freedom of speech and everyone has a right to choose, where is the church's right to choose? Now, we've seen scenarios like this play out before, like that of a couple who are based in America who chose not to make a wedding cake for a gay couple because it went against their beliefs. They were heckled and called homophobic, not because they didn't want to bake the cake, but purely because of the messaging that would be put on the cake that would, of course, be in support of gay marriage. So once again, where is the line? Do they or do they not have the freedom or the choice to choose whether or not they want to do something? Now, where on earth does freedom of speech or freedom of expression start and finish? Is it only free if it aligns with perhaps what is being pushed in that time or what is being said by people on social media? Is it even free at all? Now, I have another example for you, something that might sound ludicrous or ridiculous, but an example nonetheless. Let's take Muslims, for example. Muslims do not believe in eating bacon. I absolutely love bacon, but would I sit across a table to a Muslim and force them to eat a slice of bacon? I absolutely would not. So again, I ask this very question: where do we draw the line? Now, I do 110% believe that the church needs to be doing so much better in having these very conversations. And hey, if this is where we start it, I'm absolutely more than happy to do so. But we also need to be having conversations in the way that we see or treat those in the LGBTQ community. However, I also believe that we're in a time where we need to make it make sense. For example, Pastor Mike Todd, an American pastor who I'm sure many of us are very familiar with, who again was convicted of perjury in the trial of Twitter, as he was essentially telling women, Christian women, to stay away from the silhouette challenge that rose up and pretty much broke the internet in recent months. Now, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of it, but let's just say it was basically soft porn. Let's call a spade a spade. And from what I understand, Mike Todd is, in fact, a pastor. What on earth is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to support women getting naked and filming themselves with a background which we all know resembled the red light district of Amsterdam? And we all know what that is all about. I'm so sorry, but have we all gone mad or have we just crossed the line? But anyway, I digress and I throw that question right back to you once again. Where do we draw the line? And how on earth do we even have these types of conversations, especially within the body of Christ? Because I certainly do believe that as human beings, we are capable of listening to each other and progressing together. And as the church, we can't deny that we do need to do so much better. And not just to dismiss someone straight to hell, but to actually work on understanding, which doesn't necessarily mean having to compromise. But how that is to happen is the key question. So please leave a comment below. Like I always say, this is never a monologue. This is always a conversation. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Have we crossed the line? How do we ensure that we balance between being understanding, but making sure that we do not condone what we do not believe in? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And with that, I'd like to leave you with a very short word that has been in my spirit all week. Actually believe the blessings and things you profess over yourself rather than just saying them in vain. For example, if you say that you are blessed and highly favored, actually believe that you are. If you profess or declare over yourself that you are a light on the hill that can never be hidden, live according to that truth. And if we say, again, according to the word of God, that he has not given us a spirit of fear, but of peace, power, and a sound mind. Once again, of peace, power, and a sound mind. Live according to that truth, not according to the truth that we may hear or see in this world. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time.